Welcome to the Authentic Leaders Rising podcast, where high achieving entrepreneurs and leaders come to receive deep, insightful conversations and practical guidance to move from hustle to flow without sacrificing their authentic self and the results. I am your host and Chief Energy Officer, Tammy Cho, a former patient care leader turned international best-selling author, speaker, and face and body analysis expert. Get ready to lead your authenticity, lead your energy, and lead your impact. Hi, thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode. Today, I want to talk about something super important. I think a lot of people go through this where they get stuck in what I like to call the caring trap. And whatever we're doing, whether we're in business, we're in leadership, we're a professional, we're in the work that we do it because we care. We do it because innately as humans, we want to make a difference. We want to care and help. We want to support, empower, inspire, all these wonderful things. We could fall into a trap of achieving and caring and maybe people pleasing and over giving ourselves in a way that the care actually causes an imbalance of energy where it's at the expense of you. And so looking at it in an energetic lens, there's a canceling out with the amount you give someone at the expense of yourself. And it creates an imbalance in energy. And so it almost cancels out. It's so important to actually step into what I like to call powered caring model. We are starting from a place of being full. We are starting in a place of alignment before we step into caring again and again. And this dynamic applies to whether that's working with team members or this is working with individuals one-on-one or clients, whatever that is. And I believe this is not spoken about enough. I think a lot of people always talk about self-care, which is super crucial. However, there's layers to this. After we've cared about ourselves and did self-care, taken our breaks, our vacations and things like this, and coming back, right? But it goes another layer deeper. And I want to share with you experience that I went through that really highlighted this for myself. It's a bit vulnerable for me, but I feel like it's important to be real, to share what is actually true, and so that we can all learn and grow together. And so a situation happened for me where I was speaking to a person of authority, and he was highlighting to me all these arrangements and what he thought was best for me. And automatically, as he was sharing all of this, I said, not if there's not these leadership aspects of it. And that just blurted out of my mouth. And it was interesting. I could see that there was a visceral reaction from him. And unfortunately, that conversation was cut short, fortunately or unfortunately. We went about our ways. And what I noticed is that I went into a bit of an anxiety spiral. I was triggered for essentially speaking up for myself. So that's very interesting because I see myself as someone that can speak up. I speak up for my clients, my patients. I speak up for my kids, for myself on a regular basis. And so this was really surprising for me because I started going into the spiral of, wow, like how could I say that like this? How could I say that in such a rash way? And how could I do this and say this when he's trying to support me and finding the best development for me? And I was afraid I hurt his feelings for all his investment in me so far. And I started mind reading and making up stuff about what he might be thinking of me. And I started getting into fear around like, what will the outcome of this be? Did I totally screw up here? And things like that. So I literally went into this big spiral and I started crafting an apology. And I was going into a place where I was trying to be more palatable. And so obviously, as you're hearing this, maybe you're seeing the dynamic that's happening is that I was essentially placing my power onto this person of authority. And I believe that whatever form that we are carrying out there, Oftentimes, we are out of the empowered caring model, so to speak, when we are actually unconsciously placing our power outside of ourselves. We are literally letting the person outside of ourselves kind of guide to what that caring looks like. We are essentially unconsciously placing our power outside of ourselves. And so this is what was happening for me. Like I essentially was placing my power on him. I did speak up for my power. I did speak up in that moment and I started to shrivel back and get triggered by it. And I think it's really important to speak into the space is that a lot of times it's not that we can't speak up for ourselves and be in our power, but it's our ability to hold ourselves. A big part of feeling empowered is that we can feel supported to hold ourselves. And I was grateful that I allowed myself that space of introspection and meditation. And it hit me. I had that awakening within me because oftentimes when we're in it, we can't see it. And sharing this with you, I'm hoping that this will awaken parts within you that maybe you're going through some aspect or version of this within yourself that you may be awakened and realize that maybe you did do the right thing. It's a matter of holding yourself again and again. And so in my introspection and meditation, it dropped in that, like, why am I apologizing for speaking my truth? It makes no sense. Like I was speaking for what I actually knew was right, what's correct for me. And yet I started to give up on myself, if you will. I went into the old patterning of, well, I gotta give to others. I gotta live up to the expectations of others. I gotta care about what the other person thinks. I could handle that and just do this other thing that I could do it, right? But it wasn't in my full competence or my ability to do that. I would just do what I can do, but it wouldn't be what makes me happy. There's all these patterns that we start to slowly give out aspects of ourselves. And in this situation, I'm so grateful for the awakening I had within myself to realize that, hey, just wait, I'm speaking for my truth here. And it is correct for me. And it's sometimes a matter of speaking up for what we want again and again. And sometimes when we place our power onto authority figures, or it doesn't even have to be authority figures outside of ourselves. But for myself, like this was the trigger for me that I'm being taught my own expression of power and my limits of that in the situation. But oftentimes it could be working with a client, with another team member, where we're actually placing our power and making things okay, pleasing them. Okay, well, yeah, we could do it that way, where it's not exactly what is it that we really want. And that alludes to one of the solutions I'll be going to. So you want to tune into the end. I'm going to highlight all the pieces of overcoming this so you can be proactive and stepping into a more empowered caring model for yourself in your life and in your leadership. And for myself, when I had that realization, I was speaking up for my truth. I was speaking for what felt in alignment. I was speaking up for really the greater good, because if I expend my energy in that way that I'm not in true alignment, it's actually not creating a difference in that role. And for myself, I need to be in a self managed role where I have the autonomy and freedom to express and to create change. And so it really was a lose lose. And then that moment, what it felt like for me that I was being really rash, I was being over the top, I was being like, whoa, too bold. That's way too much speaking up for yourself. That's what it felt like. And so I want to offer that to the listeners here, where within your life that you feel that you're actually being too much. You're being too weird. You're being too out of the box. And it's like, that's exactly what it felt like, where speaking up for what I needed is it felt like all those pieces. And obviously, intellectually, if I were looking at this outside of myself, I could see that. But in the moment that I was in it, I didn't see it. And so take a breath and ask yourself, where are there places that maybe you are giving your power away, or that you had spoken up for what you needed and it felt like it was too much? And where are there places where you are speaking up for yourself and then someone says something to you and then you go back, and even though you said I spoke up for what I needed, and so they're not accepting it, so I guess that's it, and giving up halfway through and then going into a trigger cycle at that point. And this is the empowerment piece of the caring model, is where you're gifting yourself that space of speaking up for yourself, and you say it again and again. Because if you are in transition of being an identity of overgiving, and you have that tendency to please or to achieve with overcaring, whatever you want to call it, there is a place that you got to train others how to treat you. You got to set your boundaries in a way where there is a place that this is my boundary, and you need to speak it again and again. And this is the place of assertiveness, being bold, feeling like maybe you're being a hassle of saying things again and again, or why do I need to say that again and again? Whatever that is, just know this is the process of stepping into a deeper empowerment in your caring, to bring that masculine energy of empowerment to the feminine energy of wanting to care and give, where you are not neglecting your own needs, your own wants. And so this brings us to number one of how to see you're in the caring trap and pull yourself out of it, and to move to a more empowered caring model where you get to put yourself first while you are caring for other people. Because energetics wise, if you're doing the opposite, it's actually canceling out anyway. Whereas if you are full in an empowered, aligned place and caring at a higher energy essence, it's going to make a huge difference. It's going to create that win-win energy in the circumstance that you're in. And so number one is so important. And we hear this perhaps in different forms, but I ask you, are you really doing this? And that is knowing exactly what you want in any situation where you are giving your energy. Do you know what you are wanting to create in that situation? Because you know what? If you don't have that clear want, need, intention, your old programs are going to come in. And this is the power of setting an intention, because you are directing the energy. But you could be directing the energy to make a difference in care, all these aspects. But if you're not stepping back and knowing what is it that you are wanting to create in that, with you, not just for the other person, you can see how the energy is misplaced right off the bat. The power is being placed in helping others versus ourselves. And there's a time and place where we are feeling full for a while, and then we get used to setting intentions for what we're wanting to create for others. However, this is where our self-awareness and our consciousness matters. It's being connected with your body enough to know if you are aligned in that moment. Have you given too much where it was drawing out all of your energy and you have nothing else to give? And so there's definitely a self-awareness piece in here. And so number one is knowing what is it that you want and need and being really clear on that. And number two is recognizing that piece of giving your power away. I alluded to it in number one with knowing that when you are setting what is it you want, are you including yourself in that intention? Are you including what is it that you want in giving your caring to other people? And this is what is really important, because we can place our power to our husbands, our wives, to our clients, to our colleagues, and things like that when we're not being conscious. Where you are doing this, where you are not really knowing what you want and you're placing that, and what does that look like for you? Because for one person, it could be that you turn silent and you just stew in it. Sometimes you hold in what is it that you want, but you're not even sure what you want. So it's really hard for you to articulate that. And so you just let it slide because it's easier that way, but it's eating away at your energy. What is the way you give away your power? And whatever we don't bring out of the unconscious into the conscious, it's going to run our lives, and then we'll just call it fate. And so really take a moment and to recognize, like, how is it that that plays out for you? And number three is really shifting your energy out of that, Because for myself, if I didn't take that time to do the introspection, to meditate, to change my energy, and to change the lens I was seeing it at, if I stayed in the old energy, I wouldn't be able to see something different. If I stayed in that old energy, I would keep on letting things play into the anxiety cycle. So it's like giving yourself the time and space to really shift your energy into a different state of being so that you can see something different and create something new from that. And the last step is like getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, with being bold, with being rash, with being different, and to be able to take action again and again to hold yourself in that. These are so crucial pieces that we're not necessarily connecting to on a regular basis, but it could be something you're playing again and again. And so going back to the 4 steps, knowing what is it that you want, setting the intention. Number 2, recognizing different situations in your leadership. How are you going about maybe placing your energy on other people where you're feeling something in your body and it's alerting you, but you don't really know, maybe it's brewing in you? Go back to number 1. And what is it that you want here? And so number 3 is shifting your energy, creating the space for yourself to shift the energy. And then of course, number 4, realizing that to be empowered with the caring piece together with that masculine and feminine energy, oftentimes is bringing that boldness. It's bringing that light, that lioness energy, however you want to call it, that fierceness that feels uncomfortable maybe for you, and bringing it in. And maybe you already have that, but it's like, look at different situations where you are not allowing that. And maybe it's going back to the other pieces of knowing what is it that you want and how you're misplacing your energy and what energy you're operating from. And so I love these steps because you can go back to different ones depending on what stage you're at, and to really allow yourself, what step I'm missing here? What can I do to really shift from a caring model to an empowered caring model where you and your needs and wants are not neglected at the expense of the caring? I hope this episode has opened your eyes into all the different ways that your power can be misplaced and what you can start to do about it right away, and through the lens of caring in an empowered way. And I think that this is something that we're not necessarily thinking about, but we're actually applying this on a regular basis. So I hope this episode has supported you to take that breath, step back, take a look at how you're operating, what is your leadership on a daily basis, and to make those tweaks for yourself wherever you're at. Thank you so much for tuning in today. If you're wanting to let me know what you thought of this episode, feel free to drop me a line at Tammy at Path to the Heart, TAMMY at Path to the Heart, exactly how it sounds. I'd love to connect with you and connect. So lots of love to you. Hope you are having a beautiful day, and I wish you empowered, caring, doing what you love. Thank you so much for listening to the Authentic Leaders Rising podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review so others can find the life-changing content that we're sharing here. We are starting our movement on our way to number 1, and we need your help to get there. If you'd like to connect with other high-achieving entrepreneurs and leaders who are also on their authentic, energetic leadership journey, join our free Facebook community, Energetically Aligned Leaders. Go to pathtotheheart.com/links to join the Facebook group, book your personalized face analysis experience, or to access our resources.